Boom! What's up, guys? It's Christopher Barnett here, back at you with another YouTube video, and I'm doing a Mr. Burns here. Excellent. I don't know what that was very cringeworthy. Anyways, this video is going to be dedicated to kind of how I got into UCSB, my stats, test scores, extracurriculars, as well as my personal essay topics, as well as advice for those. So without further ado, I'm not going to waste any more time. Let's go right into it. So for my stats, we're going to start off with GPA. So I graduated with a 4.72 GPA, I believe. With that said, obviously the over 4.0 is attributed to a lot of AP courses and honors courses, which I highly recommend. Really load yourself up. That's going to be really beneficial for you in terms of boosting your GPA and really looking like you're challenging yourself for colleges. What I don't recommend, however, is like taking way too many. Now, there were certain people that I knew that took like 4 or 5 AP classes in freshman year, and you can do that certainly if you can handle it, but being a freshman, I didn't feel that it was necessary, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into at the start. So I started off with 1, and in sophomore year, bumped it up to 2, and then junior year, I bumped it up to 4, and then I continued with 4 in senior year because I felt that that was a comfortable level at that point. Throughout all that, I took some honors courses here and there, and overall, I graduated ranked number 6 in my class out of like about 500 or so people, and I'm gonna be transparent with you, and I want to preface this right now, I did get straight A's all across high school, but that's not to say that you have to have straight A's in order to get into a top college, or any college for that matter. People making the decisions for college acceptances, they're not gonna just accept every person that has straight A's if they don't have anything to back it up. So get your grades as high as you can. This is kind of like a starting point. They like to see those higher GPAs, but that's not the only thing. So now we're gonna kind of transition over to test scores. So that's gonna be SAT subject tests, as well as AP test scores. So first and foremost, there are 2 major standardized tests that most colleges either require or recommend. One of those being the SAT and the other one being the ACT. I personally only took the SAT and I took it twice. That said, it's probably wise to take both at least once, and I wouldn't recommend really taking either of them more than 3 times. Certainly you can take them as many times as you want, as long as you pay for them, but it's really more beneficial for you to study for them. Take the test. If you don't like it, study even harder and take the test, as opposed to like take the test, take the test, take the test, take the test, studies, take the test, take the test, take the test, and so forth. But those are just my thoughts. Not that I followed that piece of advice necessarily. So for my SAT, I scored a 1450. The first round, I got a 780 in math, as well as a 670 in English. Math was just my natural kind of strong suit, and English was always my weaker point, but that's okay. It's just like that sometimes. For my second round, so the first time it was junior year, the second time was senior year before application season started. I took it again, but the problem was I didn't really study or, do any practice exams for it, and it kind of reflected on my score. So I ultimately ended up getting the same score, 1450. The only thing different was 770 on math and then 680 on the English section. These weren't the necessarily best scores that I could have gotten. I certainly think I could have gotten upwards in the 1500s had I prepared for it the second time, but I didn't. But it is what it is. We can do what ifs all day, and I don't want to waste your time with that. So 1450 is a decent score. If you can get 1500 plus, that's excellent. Even 1400 plus, that's really good. If you're at the 1300s, that's acceptable, but you really want to try to get above that, I would say. But that's just a personal opinion. Obviously, it's going to come down to more than just your SAT score. So I'm going to move on to SAT subject tests now. I only took 2 of those. I took the SAT Math Level 2 subject test, and on that I scored a 790. And I also took the SAT Subject Spanish test as well, and I got a 760 on that. I want to deal with a STEM major in the future, so that's why I took the math SAT subject test, and I just took the Spanish one simply just to kind of challenge myself. It was the end of junior year when I had already finished AP Spanish, so I just wanted to kind of challenge myself and see how I would do on that, and 760 is a pretty decent score, so I'm happy with that. With that said, in terms of SAT subject tests, if you really want to go for a STEM major, highly recommend that you take at least 1 math subject test, preferably math level 2. And some engineering colleges even require you to take number 2 instead of 1. And in addition to that, I really recommend that you take at least 1 science subject test. Now, me personally, I didn't take one. I should have. but I didn't. And because of that, I didn't apply to a college like Caltech, because Caltech does require you to take the math level 2 subject test as well as at least one science subject test. So engineering colleges especially, and just if you're in a STEM major, they really kind of want to look for both of those. So that would be my firm recommendation. And then for AP scores, now in terms of AP scores, I don't believe this is necessarily going to impact your acceptance or admissions. They certainly help with getting college credit, of course. I certainly got a lot of credit from all my AP courses. So I did take 11 AP courses. I took freshman year, I took APES, AP Environmental Science. I got a 5 on that, certainly an enriching course and experience. Sophomore year, I took AP Bio as well as AP World History. I got a 5 in World History and a 4 in Bio. In junior year, AP Physics, I got a 4 on that. AP Lang, I got a 5 on that. AP Psychology, I got a 5 on that. And AP Spanish, I got a 5 on that as well. And then senior year, I stuck with the 4 again, and I got a 5 in AP Comp Sci, a 5 in Calc BC, a 5 in Lit, and then a 3 in Chem. Chem was really hard. I also didn't really prepare for it as much as I should have, but that's okay, that's okay. But regardless of that, I'm gonna kind of move on to the next subject, and that's going to be extra curriculars. You can't just put nothing down, I'm sorry. You have to have something. If you have nothing down, your chances of getting into any decent college are pretty slim. For me personally, this is something that I lacked on, and I acknowledge this, and I recognize that this is probably why I didn't get accepted into a lot of the top colleges that I applied to. So for me, obviously, my biggest extracurricular was my whole bodybuilding pursuit. It was weight training, bodybuilding, and the fitness lifestyle that I pursued. And obviously, like, because it's not an official like sport based on like high school, college standards, maybe the people reading my application didn't really see it as like a legitimate extracurricular, but I did kind of try to make the case that it was a legitimate extracurricular in one of my essays for later on. But honestly, it was like, that was like the main thing. Like, some people scoff at bodybuilding. That's fine, that's their opinion, but that was kind of my big thing. Like, some people in high school, they play basketball, they play football, they play baseball, they dance, they do art, they are in choir. And that's their sports and arts. And for me, bodybuilding was my sport. It was my art, and it was something that I enjoyed, and it was something that helped me grow as a person, as an individual, and I really took a lot of the lessons that I learned from bodybuilding, and I just kind of went with it and I applied it to everyday life, and I attribute a huge portion of that, of my success, to the fundamentals of, you know, weight training and fitness and self-improvement. And I did talk about my competition experience. I had also mentioned that I was a fitness instructor for kids, and a lot of my extracurriculars actually had to do with physical fitness and some type of weight training or bodybuilding type of thing. It was all kind of like connected towards that, and obviously that wasn't connected to my computer science major, but it was just one of the things that I was passionate about, and it was one of the things that I enjoyed. I didn't necessarily want to become a professional bodybuilder, like at an IFBB pro level. I didn't necessarily want to become a personal trainer for my whole life. I certainly want to do that, but more as like a side job or like a kind of college job. So in addition to that, you can obviously mention things like NHS, CSF. Those things are great. Well, I wouldn't call them great. Those things are okay. When you get inducted in NHS and the CSF, it's not a bad thing, obviously, but the thing is everybody does it. It doesn't make you stand out. Honestly, it's very common, and it doesn't really make you pop. And I'm not saying do a bunch of different things, a bunch of random things. People who read college applications, they don't want to see you do this and that and this and that and completely unrelated things, but you know, you're well-rounded, right? Well-rounded. Well-rounded, not necessarily the best term for this. You want to be devoted to maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe even 3 things, but I would recommend 1 or 2 things personally. And you want to kind of have that devotion and keep with it and stay passionate about it across your entire high school experience. Now, people who are rewarded most are people who, you know, do choir all 4 years of high school, people who do sports all 4 years of high school, people who start their own club and stick with that for all 4 years of high school, people who start their own businesses and do internships and things relating to their majors. So extracurriculars, obviously I did lack a little bit. I don't think I had no extracurriculars, and I did a little bit of tutoring here and there, and I was part of a mentorship program, but that was kind of a small little thing, and I don't think it really made me stand out, because I'm sure a lot of people do tutoring, and I'm sure a lot of people act as mentors more or less. But that's that, and with that said, I'm going to move on to my last subject, and that's essays. Now, unfortunately, I do not have my essays on me. I actually forgot, I think, one of them. Sorry, I was just checking to see if I was still recording, but apparently I am. That's great. So essays, by far the most important part of your application. The essay is your opportunity, your chance, your moment to showcase your personality, your attributes, and give yourself a case as to why you would be an excellent addition to a certain school. If you're doing the UC application as of right now, I believe there's like 4 small essay prompts, 4 mini essays in my opinion. Because I kind of lacked in my extracurriculars in terms of something that related to STEM or computer science, I actually took one of my essays and I tried to get creative with it. Now, if you're gonna be super creative with your essays, by all means go for it. Just be careful, don't risk too much. This was kind of a risk that I took. So I actually took one of my essays, wrote it kind of like as if I was writing a program. Obviously, when you're coding and programming, you use things like while loops and for loops. And I started off the topic like, while I was doing this, for this and that, if, and I would use like these different types of statements and weave them into my essay, talking about programming this one project. As I was talking about a computer science project that I was doing, I was using computer science language and structuring the essay as if it were a program itself. And I had my AP Lit teacher read it. It was kind of funny. She said it was kind of weird, but she said it was really good because it really showcased my personality. That was just an example of me trying to be a little creative with it. With that said, another type of essay that I wrote was something that I was really passionate about. And that was basically a bodybuilding essay. Like, you never think anyone's gonna write about bodybuilding or weight training or going to the gym in one of their essays. I wrote about essentially how bodybuilding and weight training in general changed my life. And I remember I introduced it by talking about how I was kind of going to war, going to battle with the squat rack. But I got really descriptive. I used really rich details, and that's something that you might want to consider in one of your essays. Colorful language, vibrance weaved throughout your essay. I started off talking about how we were like rivals, the barbell on me, how I was battling the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I ultimately talked about how I failed. And I talked about how bodybuilding essentially taught me to get back up into the bar, to not give up even if you fail the first time. Failure without quitting is not really failure. It just gives you an opportunity to try again and become better than you were yesterday. But failure because you quit, that's real failure. I used to do a lot of things. I used to do track, and I tried football, and I used to do martial arts, and all those things I ended up quitting, and I ended up regretting it until I started weight training and bodybuilding, and this is something that I have stuck with all 4 years of high school until now. And that's the thing that taught me to not quit, to follow through with things, and to get back under the bar. And to move on, I also talked about something in my youth that really impacted me, something that was deeply emotionally impactful for me. Not to, have them be like, oh, I feel bad for this kid. I guess we'll let them in, no. Don't think that way. Don't get them to try to feel bad for you. Get them to connect with you. Get them to understand where you came from and why you're here, how you're gonna go forward with this, and why you'd be an excellent addition to the school. And in terms of my other essay, I did forget, unfortunately. So that's all for today, guys. I certainly hope you guys enjoyed listening to my video. I might make some more videos regarding college applications or just kind of general advice in terms of how to get into UCs or different colleges. With that said, thank you so much for watching, guys. Love you all, and make sure to stay gold, kings and queens.